Hello and welcome back to another episode of CharlaFootball. I'm your host, as always, Gerardo Jerry Tavares, accompanied by Tomas. We just finished watching the U.S. get knocked out of the Copa America. Two of the biggest teams in CONCACAF now officially out, and Panama booked their spot into the quarterfinals. So far, Tomas, I'm sure you're proud of yourself because your predictions look like they're going through. Your dark horse prediction is still alive in this tournament so far.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure who Panama faces next, but they're probably out. Well, actually, I think they play Canada? No, they're Group C, right? So they play D, so it's either Brazil or Colombia. So
Yeah, so most
yeah,
likely Panama's going to
they're
get
most
knocked out.
likely knocked out. Maybe they'll give a good game. So I mean, it is what it is. I predicted that the Panama could have upset the U.S. and somehow make it in, and they've done just that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that game was key. The Panama versus U.S. game just played a few days ago in Las Vegas. That was the match that the U.S. needed to win. Timothy Weah, unfortunately, lost his head, left his team stranded with 10 men, and I mean, they couldn't get the job done over there. Lost 2-1, and left it all to play against Uruguay. And that's like the worst case scenario. You don't want to be in a situation where you have to beat Uruguay, especially in the hot form that they're in right now, with the players that they have, with the manager that they have. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking in their head. I don't know what Timothy Weah was thinking when they played Panama, but I mean, on the day when the states played against Uruguay, it wasn't that bad. I mean, what we saw from them, they looked hungry, they looked ready, they were ambitious, and they put up a good fight. There was no denying that. But I mean, Uruguay are too strong, and unfortunately, a controversial decision was the main difference and the main talking point.
Um, yeah, I see how that could be a controversial decision because technically, to how I remember the rule being used, it was offside because it's at the last second of possession, and they kind of take make draw the lines to when the ball barely touches Ronaldo Araujo's head. I mean, it was Ronaldo Araujo, right?
I don't remember who flicked it on him.
Yeah, I think it was Ronaldo Araujo. So I don't know. It's really controversial, and I know a lot of U.S. fans are mad because I mean, my Twitter didn't stop blowing up with just USMNT.
Content.
Yeah, like feed, like
I saw videos of fans trying to call for Berhalter's head after the end of the match. They're like, "Fire Greg, fire Greg." I mean, is that fair?
I'm not sure to be honest because yes, well, what cost the U.S. was the Panama game,
Mhm.
and playing down a man is really unless you've practiced for that for weeks, then I see how you're able to adjust to it quickly. But other than that, nobody really trains for being a man down, especially in the game versus Panama.
Mhm.
I mean, I'd say that Panama games is completely on the center forward who just rocks the center back. Was it Timothy Weah who just punched him?
Yeah, he literally punched him in the face.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's a terrible reaction. Yes, there was a little bit like of pushing from the Panamanian side, but I mean, he just lost his head and that cost him. But another thing that I want to touch on is the U.S. does a really good job of beating Mexico, and it's like they've created this perfect team to beat Mexico, but they've forgotten that there's other styles in the world, or there's other forms of play in the world, or other formations, other tactics.
Other teams, bro. I
Other
mean, when you
teams.
really think about it, and I was listening to the commentary by some of the Fox guys, they were saying that the U.S. have not beaten a single team, or at least Greg Berhalter has not beaten a single team outside of CONCACAF besides Mexico. And
Yeah,
I mean, that's not really anything commemorable when you're playing against the worst Mexican generation. One
yeah.
of
I
them.
mean, if you think about it, the worst Mexican generation had a better finish than the best USMNT generation because Mexico ended up with 4 points and they got knocked out on goal differential. I mean, the US got knocked off on points. They didn't even come into the conversation of goal differential. Now it's unfortunate, but it just really shows you where the US and Mexico are at. The US playing Copa Oro's always in the US, Mexico always playing in the US where they have their second highest fan base. It doesn't benefit them in any way if when teams who like Colombia, Ecuador, who also have a lot of maybe not as much as the number of Mexico in the US, but just fans in general here that they're able to travel and able to give you some momentum. I mean, at the end of the day, these teams who are more talented are able to beat you out.
And that's exactly what we saw today. Uruguay overall just more talented. I mean, line for line, they have the better squad.
I
The
mean,
U.S. were able to compete, but just, I mean, it was just little margins, like we've been saying throughout these international tournaments. It's the little mistakes, it's the little margins that really separate teams.
yeah, I mean, this is something that Tuca Ferretti said that order in a team beats a scrappy, talented team. But an order talent or order versus order team, like a strong formation versus another strong formation, the one that's more talented wins.
Hmm.
And that's what Uruguay, because USA's formation and the way that the coach sets their team up, it's pretty strong defensively. I mean, we saw Uruguay struggle to get through that,
Hmm.
and it's just something where it really shows you how much coaches like Tuca Ferretti. I mean, even I forgot his name. Jared Borghetti mentioned the same thing. Where if it's of a team with strong order like the U.S. versus a team that has a lot of strong order like Uruguay, it's gonna come down to the talent and these individual players, and Uruguay just has those.
Yeah, completely agreed. I mean, they were able to put their one opportunity away because they didn't create too much, but the one opportunity they did have, they put it away. Now let's talk about that offside or what could have been called offside. I mean, that, like I said, it was a controversial decision and slim margins, really. Was it offside? In your opinion, was it offside? Should the goal have stood the way it has? I mean, what do you think?
In my opinion, to the rules today, to what the rules have been based off of so far, I believe it should have been called offsides because at the moment that Ronald Araujo, like in the millisecond that the ball leaves his head, he is slightly off. So if that's the rule, then yes, he's slightly off. But in my belief, I think he's on because I don't believe like a toe or like
Yeah,
just
you
that
what
shouldn't be.
kind of advantage do you get from being a toe offside? There's no
Yeah.
advantage. It's the
So
same
if
shit we saw in the Denmark versus Germany game when Denmark went up 1-0. I mean,
yeah, I
he
mean
was offside literally by
by
like
a
4.
toe, by literally his toe, like that doesn't give you. And he was in the middle of two center backs as well.
Mhm.
Like that, I'm telling you, that doesn't give you that much of an advantage.
Yeah, and especially I don't know. It's just I mean on the day. I mean you watched the match. It was just so controversial from the referee in general. The referee was poor throughout the whole 90 minutes. I think the officiating throughout the match was subpar to what CONMEBOL and what Copa America needs, and especially a game being played in the States. I mean, you have to have the best of the best, and I think the referee succumbed to the pressure.
Mm, yeah, I've seen instances. Well, in other games where the ref has like had completely lost control of the game. I think the Canada Chile game was one of them where there was just a lot of like kicking, obviously from frustrated Chile players as well as the Canadian players were answering back. And there's been so many games in CONMEBOL where yes, these teams are scrappy, but there's no real order that the referee gives. I know in Europe, I forgot what game it was, but two players kind of come to protest and he tells them to leave. They don't leave. He gives them two yellows, and that's something we don't see in Copa America. These players are able to yell at the ref. They're able to come like with so much enthusiasm towards the ref. So I don't use another word, but practically pissed off. And the ref really just tells them like to hold up, like what he's seeing, what VAR is saying, and it's weird to be imposed by a player.
My bad, y'all. Some technical difficulties on my end over here, but I mean, yeah. I mean, like I said, to me, the officiating was poor. I mean, it's just subpar. I mean, from what we're used to or what we should be seeing and the level at this level, pretty much. But it's not an excuse. I mean, the game. I mean, the U.S. had the game in their hands. They had the opportunity. They had to win. They couldn't do so. So at the end of the day, it's their fault. It's Berhalter's fault. It's on the players as well. And it's really unfortunate because we are seeing the two biggest teams in CONCACAF kicked out. We saw Mexico kicked out yesterday, eliminated by Ecuador, and now we see the United States, the host country of the Copa America. This is the first time a host country gets in the Copa America gets kicked out of the competition
In a group stage.
in group stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, in group stage. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
We're group stage. My bad.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's just when you have your people behind you, you have everything in your favor, the momentum, and you get knocked out in group stages, and that's gotta suck, to be honest.
Yeah, in front of 50,000 people. I forgot what city they were playing at, but it was a full stadium. It was a pro US crowd. And I mean, now you just have a bunch of question marks raised over your head. I mean, the same way that the question marks are above Jimmy Lozano and his men, is going to be the same thing over Greg Berhalter and his men. The only difference, I think, is that these question marks have been upon Greg Berhalter for even longer than they've been over
Yeah,
Jimmy Lozano.
yeah. I mean, Jimmy Lozano took control of the team a year ago, so he was off to a hot start, but we didn't expect much of Mexico, and they still let us down. I mean, we expected them to make quarters, maybe lose to Argentina, maybe lose to. I mean, damn, bro, if we would have made it in first place, we would have played Canada. So
Oh,
it's
for real, right? I mean, and that would have been the perfect opportunity for us. I don't know. It's just when you expect these teams, when I'm talking about the likes of the US and the likes of Mexico, when you expect something of them, they tend to disappoint us. And it's just the harsh reality that we can't overcome because at the end of the day, we are just mediocre. CONCACAF is a mediocre just area. I mean, there's no competition, and once you're put up against real competition like CONMEBOL, like Ecuador, like Bolivia, for whatever reason, even that's competition, like Uruguay, like Colombia. I mean, we don't see enough of them for us to be able to compete with them.
yeah, true. And the thing is that these teams like Venezuela, Ecuador, these mid-table teams, which would be considered because there's only 10 nations in their confederation. Um, they play the likes of Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Colombia, which I'll say those are the top four for right now. So there's teams like Ecuador, Venezuela. They're constantly playing teams that are better than them, that have more talented players than them, that have maybe a stronger order to how they play. So when they play a team that's weaker than them, that's not as strong, how would I say, just as strong in general than them, obviously they're gonna be able to win,
Hmm.
or even just go out with a draw because they're used to being the inferior team. They're used to being the team that's supposed to lose, and they come out with these results. And we saw
Yeah.
that versus Mexico versus Venezuela. You know, Mexico was better than Venezuela if we're talking about a total football way, which Johan Cruyff would say it, like who possessed the ball better, who created the more chances, who created the most opportunities.
But
But
the
at
thing,
the end,
football is about just it's about putting the ball in the back of the net. If you
that's
can't do
it.
that, that's what it comes out to.
Yeah, I mean, you could create as much as you want, but if you don't finish, it doesn't matter. It
Hmm.
practically it's for nothing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, so that kind of, I mean, that leaves the United States with not much preparation looking toward the World Cup, like how I said with Mexico yesterday. Now you just have friendlies. I think the Gold Cup is still up in 2025, but I mean, really, what kind of competition is that compared to going into the latter stages of Copa America?
I mean,
So,
you
I mean,
can you the smart thing for CONCACAF to do right now would be to invite a couple of CONMEBOL sides,
to come to
maybe
the Cold Cup, right?
yeah, to the Gold Cup, invite them, invite I don't know an African side, invite
An
a Euro
Asian.
side if you can. Anybody that's willing to give us competition. I mean, it's just that's what we're up to now. This was supposed to be our preparation, and we didn't come prepared to the preparation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrible. And if you think about it, you know, we're thinking for the World Cup now. We're advancing a little bit. There's at least 5 or 6 teams that can give you the game that Uruguay gave you today in the world. I'd say Argentina, Colombia, Brazil has a talent, but I won't put them in there right now. Germany, who else? I mean,
Portugal.
Portugal can give you that work. France and England, I won't say right now they have the talent, but they've been playing poorly. But you get where I'm going with this.
Yeah,
There's
Spain.
there's so many, yes, Spain especially. There's so many teams that I mean, the U.S. and Mexico are not top 8 right now. I don't
I
even
don't even
think
think like
they're
you know
top
how there's the
15.
FIFA rankings and everything. Sorry, my bad. My Sorry, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty over here. But I'm saying that in rankings in general, FIFA rankings, Mexico is considered around the what 12th, 11th. United States are considered 13th, 14th. But I consider that to be false.
To be honest, the Mexico's right now in like 25th, 26th, and the US is 22nd, 23rd, if anything. Having the US is able to beat Mexico, yes, but it's like they're the only team they prepare for. Like they're so prepared to beat Mexico, they forget that there's other styles out there, that they forget that there's other cups out there, that they forget that there's more important things to do. Like, where do you go when you're the US? You know, you beat Mexico every year, but yet you're being the worst Mexican generation. Is that really an accomplishment?
Hmm.
Because
It's not. It's really not.
when you're in the same competition, you end up in the same spot, considering that they ended up in third place, but you end with less points than them in a team. I mean, in a group where there was one really good team, one team under you that supposedly under you, and one way below you. Whereas in Mexico, they played two teams that were evenly with them, and then one that was slightly under them, which is Jamaica. But let's remember how Jamaica qualified to this Copa America. They beat Canada. So I mean, Canada has a strong side right now. They were able to make it out of the group. Props to them. But you see where I'm going with this? The Mexico had a more even side of the table, whereas the US was a little bit more disbalanced, having Bolivia in there, the worst team in CONMEBOL, having Panama in there, which is I'd say like a mid-table, maybe third, fourth team. They're a top four team for right now in CONCACAF. But when you're the CONCACAF giant, because that's what the US claims to be right now, you should have ran through Panama, even with 10 men. I mean, you should have gave Uruguay a tie, a draw at least, if you're
Yeah.
the number one team in CONCACAF. Because when Mexico was the number one team in CONCACAF, they beat Argentina in 2004. They beat Brazil in 2004. Like they had these results that prove that they were the number one team in CONCACAF and that they could compete with anybody in the world. Maybe they wouldn't always win. Maybe they won not so frequently, but they were able to get it done sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean, on the topic of getting it done, and I mean, how can we not bring up Panama? Panama, like you said, are in the beginning of this new transitionary period, looking into the World Cup, and in Copa America, it's their first or second time, I believe, participating in a Copa America, and now they're into the quarterfinals against all odds. Them and I believe Canada right now are the only ones in Concacaf that were able to qualify into the quarterfinals. And
Yeah.
like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that was your dark horse pick. So I gotta give you props for that. That was a good pick right there because I did not expect that for Panama to get to the position that they're in right now.
Yeah, it's just I mean, I seen the process of Panama. I seen how good they were in the Gold Cup. And even the Gold Cup before this one, they showed a lot of improvement. And I just believe that they're a scrappy team where they're able to control the midfield. So I believe that if they face the CONMEBOL side, it'd be like facing a team from home for like they would fit in CONMEBOL. And I just think that I mean they're a solid side. They defend really well. They work together. They're a workhorse team. They have a strong organization from the midfield to the back. Going forward, they're a little bit more iffy, yes, but I mean they end up scoring somehow.
I mean, today they put three past Bolivia. I mean, to be fair, Bolivia is one of the worst teams in the
I
tournament in
I think
CONMEBOL in general. But
I think the worst one in the tournament. To be fair, I don't think they got a point, a single point.
no, they didn't. But they
Yeah,
at least scored their first goal today.
yeah. I mean, they were celebrating it like they won the World Cup, but it's just Bolivia has always been that team that's
Let down.
uh,
They've honestly always let down.
they never really had a real history up until now. This is no disrespect. It's just historically speaking.
Yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, I mean, Panama, congrats to them. I mean, you can't do nothing but applaud them as much. I mean, they've been through so much. I mean, you're talking about selección that has, I wouldn't say the most talented individual players, but overall, they've always had a good cohesive unit. They've always had a good
Yeah,
solid squad. They've always had that grit, that passion that I mean you just attribute to Panama. And I mean one of the instances I think about that Gold Cup. I don't remember if it was a semifinal where they just lose to Mexico. Guardado scores a controversial penalty. What
oh
year?
yeah, 20. That was 2015. I remember that like
2015.
yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean you think about the hard injustices that Panama have been through, and now I mean basically 10 years later, they're they're I mean, more than happy. I'm sure they're more than happy. They have to be proud. I'm sure the Panamanian people are exceptionally excited for what's to come.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. The thing is also, let's not get too excited for Panama. They're still a cohesive unit. Yes, they're one of the best teams in CONCACAF because they play together as a team. They're solid, but they still lack a little bit more talent. They still need to export a few more players, but they're on the right path. I say they're on a better path than Mexico, not the U.S. right now because the U.S. is dumping a lot of money into forming players and sending them to Europe, but definitely a lot more advanced than Mexico. They're trying to get players to Europe. They don't have the material for that yet because people don't believe in the Panamanian player just yet. And I don't blame them because I mean, who is Panama in the world of football?
Yeah.
Now we see this closer, and I know a lot of South Americans are praising Panama. Like I saw a tweet later, like Panama could easily be like sixth or fifth and fighting for that last ticket where you play like an Oceania side for the World Cup. And I was thinking, like, yes, I mean they defend very well. I mean they're better than Bolivia and Peru. They could probably give any team from CONMEBOL a fight out of the top four.
I mean, they were giving Uruguay a fight up until Uruguay got that second goal, then the third goal, and it was just pretty much wrapped up from there.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I mean, this Panama side, I think within the next 2 years, if they can develop a few more players, export them to Europe, and keep building with the group that they have, that Thomas Christensen, I think that's the coach's name.
yeah.
He's came in and just completely revamped the squad. I mean, if Panama were already a difficult team to face, I mean, even now, and especially with the confidence that they're going into the next round of the quarterfinals and looking forward to the World Cup
Yeah.
2026. I mean, they're going to be definitely a team to not take lightly. I wouldn't say to look out for. I don't think they're going to go that far, but for sure not to take lightly, and don't underestimate this Panama team. But overall, I mean, you said that Panama are going to face Canada, or who are they
Panama,
facing?
no, they're probably gonna face Colombia or Brazil, so they're probably most likely out.
Okay. Well, I mean, if they face Brazil, I can see them giving a better fight than they would versus Bolivia. I mean, versus Colombia, because Colombia way too difficult of an opponent to go through right now.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Now let's talk about a topic that I was kind of thinking about. I was talking to my dad about this. Marcelo Bielsa of Uruguay was offered to Mexico, and Mexico was about to sign him until he said that he needed the complete control of the Mexican Federation and of the players U13 and up. So they rejected him
Hmm.
because they felt like no coach should have that much power. Yet they like to divide the power. One coach on one side has the youth. One coach on one side has chooses the Olympic squad. One coach on one side chooses who's going to play for La Selección every major tournament. What do you think about that?
It's
He was our
unfortunate.
coach.
It's unfortunate because I would have been more than happy to take Marcelo Bielsa. As we all know, he's one of the most important figures in football, especially in South America. And we've seen what he's done in Europe as well. I mean, most recently his work with Leeds, keeping them afloat in the Premier League. But I mean, overall, it's sad to see that we let someone like him go. I mean, props to him. Now he's doing wonders for Uruguay, doing an amazing, incredible job over there. I mean, just look at the way they play. But I mean, you honestly could have had that. But I don't know. It's not on him. It's really just the federation's fault. But I mean, that's a conversation that we already kind of had, or I kind of had yesterday on my rant. But overall, I mean, I would have liked to have a manager like him, and Uruguay they're incredibly lucky to have Marcelo Bielsa as a coach, and obviously he's leading them into glory. I think he can very well get them to the final.
Yeah, I believe that. I feel like they're the best team. Maybe not the team with the most individual talent. I feel like the team with the most individual talent is still Brazil and Argentina,
Hmm.
but they're definitely the best team at least for right now in a cohesive term and in the terms that they do have the talent. They have Darwin Nunez as a striker, Ronaldo Araujo is a solid center back, and they also have Valverde. One of the best midfielders in the world right now, if not the best one in a lot of people's eyes. So yeah, I mean, I'd say they're complete favorite, but strolling into last year a little bit, talking about Mexico again. You and I remember that there was going to be this complete reformation, that there was a new president, that there was going to be the return of Ascenso y Descenso, that there was going to be a project to get more players out to Europe, a project to limit the amount of extranjeros in the league, and then a project to have youngsters playing week in and week out. This project was supposed to be taking place this past summer.
Yeah, I
Uh,
remember. I saw. I actually reposted it on my story. The
now,
like the
when you-
proposition that they had put out.
so this was for 2023-24,
Mhm.
and there's only been one confirmed, and it's about the youngsters getting more minutes. Which you need a total of 5 players. You need at least two U23s, and then I think it was one U23 player that gets most of the minutes. I think it's like 100%. The other two can be like moved out throughout the season, and then you need two youngsters under 21. Now, with this being the only proposition that they told us is happening, what do you think about that? Where they gave us 5 other propositions, where it was to get two players out to Europe, to limit the amount of extranjeros, also to get more youngsters involved in the national team. I mean, there's been little to no change, and now that the only change is happening, they try to eradicate El Descenso, because that's the talk right now. That they're gonna fracture everything into franchises like the
I,
US.
honestly, I think it's just I mean, it's expected. I mean, I don't expect much from the federation, but to let us down. So yeah, it's just what they do. They try to sell us shit. Basically, they try to sell us shit that we know. I mean, we believe for a second, we hope that it's gonna happen. Then the time comes down to it, it doesn't happen. But honestly, I think we should save that for a topic for its own video, because this was just going to be talking about the US and all that. But I definitely want to get into the federation and the corruption, because we are yet to make a video like that, especially since after one of the videos that I posted yesterday, there's been a lot of people expressing themselves in the comment section, letting us know that they are completely in agreement with what we see, at least on our side over here as fans. And I think there has to be some sort of movement or campaign to really stop fans to going to the stadiums. I think it's getting to that extreme. So I definitely want to put out a video or record something where we can address that uh, and give it the full attention that I believe it deserves. Not at the end of
Yeah,
this video.
I'd just like to say something that's involved in the Copa America. There's a lot of Mexican fans that live in Mexico, obviously, that they complain that los pochos like us, born in the US, go to the stadium and sell out the stadium, and they wonder why the FMF doesn't change. But let's keep in mind that the FMF makes most of their money through the Liga MX, and yet they go to watch their team every week and week out, and when we do it, we get judged, and they don't expect the same thing from themselves. They're just hypocrites, and they blame us for everything because we're their scapegoat, that we give the federation money. But if they expect us not to go to the stadium, then it's the same message over there as well. Don't go
Yeah.
support your local club. Don't go support anything of the FMF. Don't buy any jerseys, because every jersey that is bought for your club, whether it's Chivas, Atlante, whether it's in the highest or in the lowest division, there's an incentive given to the FMF. So
I definitely feel like there's something more to this story, and I feel like there's a lot more that we need to go into and definitely give, because a lot of people are just exhausted with the federation. They're exhausted. They're tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. But like I said, I feel like we should save that for its own video, give it its own respect, and really put the federation on blast. And I think,
definitely.
especially once the Copa America and Euros over, we're going to need content put out. So I think that'd be the perfect time to really put the federation on blast. But that kind of wraps everything up regarding the US and Uruguay. Like I said, unfortunately, they are out of the Copa America. Congrats to Uruguay. Congrats to Panama. I mean, they made history, and we'll see if Uruguay can make it to the final. But overall, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for listening to Charla Football. Make sure to follow us on all social platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all that good stuff. Spotify, YouTube. Support your small creators, because together we're going to make it big. And yeah, we'll see you guys on the next one.